Alright, so I literally just got done watching NFL Live on ESPN, and they had this whole segment about the New York Giants that really got me thinking about what this team needs to do to finally fix their biggest weakness. Like, I was expecting the usual talk about their draft plans, and maybe some discussion about John Harbaugh settling in as the new head coach, but then they went in a completely different direction and started breaking down potential free agent targets that could really transform this offense, and the name they brought up is one that I think makes a ton of sense when you really look at what New York has been struggling with for years. Hey, what's up everyone? Before we dive into everything I have for you today, I need to share something real with you that would mean the absolute world to me. That subscribe button right there. Hitting it right now would bring me one step closer to my dream of reaching 1,000 subscribers. I know you're eager to get into all this content, but real quick, just smash that subscribe button and hit the notification bell. It's such a simple thing. It takes literally 1 second, but it's honestly the biggest way you can support this journey and help me reach that milestone. Trust me, every single subscription gets me closer to that goal, and honestly, it would mean everything to me. So do me that quick favor right now and be part of this dream becoming reality. So the show opens up and you've got Laura Rutledge sitting there with the panel, and she starts by talking about how the Giants are at this really critical juncture as a franchise. She was saying that with John Harbaugh coming in as the new head coach and bringing a completely new vision to the organization, there's going to be a complete overhaul of how this team operates. Harbaugh has a proven track record of building physical, tough teams that dominate in the trenches, and the Giants desperately need that kind of identity. But she was also emphasizing that having the right coach is only part of the equation. You need the players to execute that vision, and the Giants have one glaring weakness that has plagued them for years, which is the interior offensive line, and that's when she brought up the name Cesar Ruiz as a potential target for the Giants, and honestly, the more they broke it down, the more it started making a ton of sense for what New York is trying to accomplish. Now, obviously, Ruiz is a guard who has been with the New Orleans Saints after being selected in the first round a few years back. He's developed into a solid, reliable interior lineman who brings exactly the kind of consistency and technique that championship teams need. The panel was discussing how the Giants could pursue him and why he would be such an ideal fit for their offensive line. Marcus Spears was the first one to really dive into this, and you know how Marcus gets when he's passionate about offensive line play and building physical teams. He was like, look, the Giants have been a disaster in the trenches for the better part of a decade. They can't protect their quarterback consistently, they can't run the ball when they need to, and every year they try to address it with mid-round picks and cheap free agents, and every year it doesn't work. At some point, you have to actually invest real resources in fixing the offensive line, and Cesar Ruiz represents exactly the kind of player who can help you do that. And Marcus was saying that Ruiz is not just a good guard, he's one of the more technically sound interior linemen in the league when it comes to the fundamentals. He was breaking down Ruiz's game and talking about how this is a guy who brings solid anchor against power rushers, who reads stunts and blitzes efficiently, and who provides consistency snap after snap. He doesn't make mental errors, he doesn't get beat with simple moves, and he holds up in both pass protection and run blocking. That kind of reliability is exactly what the Giants need to stabilize their interior. Then Dan Orlovsky jumped in with his perspective, and you know Dan loves to get into the X's and O's of things. He was talking about how the Giants' offense under Greg Roman is going to be built around the running game and play-action passing. That's what Roman has always done throughout his career. He wants to establish the run, control the clock, and then take shots downfield off play action. And for that system to work, you absolutely need dominant interior offensive line play. Dan was breaking down specific concepts and talking about how Roman's offense features a lot of power runs, counterplays, and gap schemes that require guards who can create movement at the line of scrimmage. He was saying that Ruiz is excellent in those kinds of assignments. He can drive defenders off the ball, he can pull across the formation and lead through the hole, and he can climb to the second level and seal off linebackers. That kind of versatility is exactly what you need in a Roman offense. And Dan made this really interesting point about Jackson Dart and the importance of protecting the young quarterback. He was saying that Dart showed a lot of promise last year, but the Giants' offensive line didn't do him many favors. He was running for his life too often, and that's not sustainable for a young quarterback who's still learning the NFL game. Adding a veteran presence like Ruiz at guard would immediately improve the protection up the middle, which would give Dart more time in the pocket and more confidence to go through his progressions. Then they brought up some statistics and context that really put things in perspective. Adam Schefter actually joined the conversation via remote, and you know when Shefty gets involved, things get serious. He was saying that the Giants have been identified as a team that desperately needs help on the interior offensive line, and they're expected to be aggressive in pursuing upgrades this offseason. Schefter was talking about how the Giants under John Harbaugh are going to prioritize building a physical, tough offensive line. That's been the hallmark of Harbaugh's teams in Baltimore, where they always had dominant lines that could run the ball and protect the quarterback. And from what Schefter has heard, the Giants are going to explore every option to upgrade their offensive line, whether through free agency, trades, or the draft. And Schefter was connecting this to the Ruiz discussion by saying that the Saints have been dealing with salary cap issues for years now, and they've had to make difficult decisions about which players to keep. Ruiz, despite being a quality starter, could potentially become available if the Saints decide they need to move on to address other roster needs. And if that happens, teams like the Giants who need interior offensive line help should be ready to pursue him. Then the conversation shifted to how Ruiz specifically would fit with the current Giants roster and offensive scheme. And this is where it got really interesting because they started breaking down different lineup combinations and run concepts. Marcus Spears was talking about how adding Ruiz would completely change the dynamic of the Giants' offensive line. He was saying that right now the Giants have a patchwork interior that has been inconsistent for years. They've tried different combinations at guard and center, they've drafted guys, they've signed free agents, but nothing has really worked long term. But if you add a proven, technically sound guard like Ruiz, suddenly you have a foundation to build around. You have a guy who can anchor the interior and who can elevate the play of everyone around him. And Marcus was getting really animated about the running game implications. He was like, the Giants have talent at running back, but the backs haven't been able to produce consistently because there are no holes to run through. The interior of the line has been getting pushed around, and running backs are getting hit in the backfield before they even have a chance to make a move. But when you add a quality guard like Ruiz, who can create movement and open up running lanes, everything changes. Suddenly the running game becomes a strength instead of a weakness. Dan Orlovsky added to that by talking about the pass protection aspect. He was saying that interior pressure is one of the most disruptive things for a quarterback. When guards and centers are getting pushed back into the quarterback's lap, it forces him to move off his spot and throw off platform. That leads to bad decisions, turnovers, and sacks. But when you have a guard like Ruiz, who can anchor against bull rushes and who can handle powerful interior defenders, it keeps the pocket clean and gives the quarterback confidence to stand in and deliver. Dan was also breaking down how Ruiz would fit schematically with the rest of the Giants' offensive line. He was talking about how the Giants have Andrew Thomas at left tackle, who is one of the better tackles in the league when healthy, but the interior has been a revolving door of inconsistency. Adding Ruiz would give them a reliable piece that would solidify the entire offensive line. Once you have one position locked down with a quality player, it makes it easier to address the other spots. The panel also discussed the leadership and experience aspect of bringing in a player like Ruiz. Laura Rutledge brought up the fact that the Giants have a lot of young players on their offensive line who could benefit from playing alongside a veteran who knows how to prepare and execute at a high level. Marcus responded by talking about how important it is to have veteran leaders in the offensive line room. He was saying that offensive line play is all about communication, timing, and trust. You have to know that the guy next to you is going to do his job, and you have to work together as a unit. Having a player like Ruiz, who has been through it all, who has started significant games in the NFL, and who knows how to handle the grind of a season could accelerate the development of the younger players. They would learn from watching him, from practicing against him, and from hearing him communicate on the field. And Marcus made this really interesting point about the Giants' offensive line culture. He was saying that championship teams have offensive lines that take pride in their work, that want to be the toughest group on the field. The Giants haven't had that mentality in years. Adding a player like Ruiz, who brings a professional, consistent approach to every play, could help establish that kind of culture. It would set the standard for what's expected, and the younger players would rise to meet it. Then they got into some of the concerns and potential challenges with pursuing Ruiz. Laura brought up the fact that Ruiz was a first-round pick who hasn't quite lived up to the billing some expected when he was drafted. She was asking the panel whether they thought those concerns were legitimate. Dan Orlovsky addressed this directly. He was saying that the expectations for first-round picks are often unrealistic. Not every first-rounder is going to be a Pro Bowl player. But that doesn't mean they're not valuable. Ruiz has developed into a quality starting guard who can contribute on a winning team. He might not be elite, but he's solid. And for the Giants, who have been scraping the bottom of the barrel at guard for years, solid would be a massive upgrade. Asked